Hi, I'm Keiel Ogawa, and I have an English conversation school in Chiba, Japan. It's called the English Factory. I also write a little blog occasionally called The Gift of English. The Gift of English is for parents who want to raise bilingual children. It gives important tips about what to do and what not to do to raise children who speak another language. Now, it's always been my habit to ask people who mastered another language all the nitty gritty details of exactly what they had to do to speak another language fluently. And what these language masters have to say is so valuable. And by sharing their stories on YouTube, new learners and discouraged learners get a realistic understanding of the crazy amount of time and effort it takes to become fluent in another language. And learners also learn about the most effective ways and the best resources to use to reach their language speaking goals. Recently, I interviewed Rupa Sensei, the very popular and super vibrant English education influencer presently based in Japan. Now, he let me go into all the nitty gritty details about what it took for him to become a Japanese speaker. And he also explained the importance of having a language learning routine and the discipline to stick to it. At the end of the interview, you'll hear how he would change English education in Japan if he were in charge. I know you'll be very inspired by what Rupa Sensei has to say. This is Rupa Sensei. You probably already know him from his popular YouTube channel. He's a very successful English education content maker, presently based in Japan. Links to his social media are in the description below. From watching Rupa on his YouTube channel and then having the great pleasure of interviewing in person, I can tell you he's 100% positive energy. And all that positive energy has brought him some big successes. Success at mastering Japanese, success at gaining a very large audience on his YouTube channel, and all that positive energy has succeeded in opening new doors of opportunity for him in business. But where does Rupa get all that positive energy from? Is he just lucky, or is it something he does? In this interview, you're going to hear from Rupa himself how positive energy that leads to success not only in language learning, but in life in general, doesn't come from luck. It comes from hard work, from forming useful habits, and from developing the discipline to stick with a routine until you finally reach your goals.
I really appreciate you taking this time for talking to me.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. Thanks for the delicious cookies.
You're welcome. So, the reason I wanted to talk to you is because you have so many good ideas about learning language, and you've accomplished it yourself, learning Japanese, and now you're also doing Italian.
That's right. Thank you.
But, when I first saw you on YouTube, I was just amazed at your amazing energy, and you're like a bulldozer of positive energy.
Yeah.
And you push away all the negative energy, and you have a very generous spirit that you share with all your viewers, and I really thought that was very nice. And then I started watching your videos, and I realized that behind all of that energy was this ability to be disciplined and to stick to routines.
Oh, that's very important. Yeah.
So I think I saw your early videos when you were in Australia and your eating habits. And
Okay. Well, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. But I think it showed me that you obviously thought that was important. And
exactly. Yeah.
In one of your interviews with the famous YouTuber Steve Kaufman, who is a language expert and a polyglot, and he has his own language.
Channel, yeah.
Yes, learning
Lingo
system.
Steve.
you were talking of, you asked him about the importance of habits and discipline. And I
Yeah.
watched that video. And so I started thinking, okay, maybe the source of all your big energy and your positivity comes from your ability to be disciplined and to stick to routines, because you can do that. Then you get you can complete important tasks, you can reach your goals, and when you feel successful by reaching your goals, then you naturally feel a lot of energy.
Right, exactly.
You naturally get that dopamine rush.
Yeah, it's a snowball, like
Yeah.
we say. Yeah.
So today I'd like to go into that aspect, but before we do that, I want to just talk to you about your experience of learning Japanese and what was the roadmap to
Okay.
you being able to speak Japanese at the level that you can today?
Okay, fantastic.
So how old were you when you started, and why did you start?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I started when I was around 13 because in my high school they offered Japanese classes.
And your high school is where?
In Melbourne, Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, in the countryside. So not in the Melbourne city, a little bit further out. It's actually the end of the line
Okay.
in Melbourne, a place called Upway.
Upway.
Yeah,
Look at that. It matches your personality.
yeah, Upway, yeah. So it's a
Okay.
little town, and my Japanese class only had about 6 to 8 students, depending who wanted to show up or who wanted to sub-order.
Your Japanese class had how many?
Around 6 to 8 students.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, well, at the start, in the earlier years, there were more, and then when it started to get difficult, people dropped out of the course, and then towards the end, there were only about 6 other students, so that means we had a lot of one-on-one time with the teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess
Was it every day? So you would go 5 days a week to school,
Yeah,
and did you have Japanese every day?
I think it was 8 hours a week.
8 hours? Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, so in Australia, we often do what's called double periods,
Okay.
which they were like double classes, so it was a whole 1 hour and a half
Okay.
of the class. Yeah, and also I was very fortunate. My school had a great system with the ALTs,
Uh-huh.
where once a week the ALT, you would go into their office and you'd have your lunch with them for like a whole hour, and you
Oh,
just
wow.
one-on-one
With
speaking
the
practice.
Japanese. Okay.
Yeah, and I thought that was amazing.
So it was this personal attention,
Yeah,
8 hours a week, with
Yeah.
1 hour a week where just you were with the teacher.
right.
Now, how about homework and things like that?
Yeah, I'd say homework, especially in Australia, it's a bit more on the lenient side. They're not too much. There wasn't too much homework or anything like that. But my teacher, he would always give us his favorite dramas or anime series,
Okay.
and then we would go home and
And he
watch
was
them.
Japanese. He was
Yeah.
a real Japanese.
We had other teachers. Well, in the earlier years, it was a Sri Lankan lady and an Australian lady, and they would just teach more of the basic kind of things.
Grammars.
Yeah, grammars,
Grammars. My bad.
hiragana,
My bad English grammar.
grammars. Yeah, I'm Australian, so we put the S on the end of everything and make it plural. But yeah, just to learn the hiragana and the katakana
Okay.
and stuff like that. So that was all just like the very basics in year 7.
How was it learning the basics with a non-Japanese speaking? Like the pronunciation in Japanese is quite different from English.
Yeah.
It's not particularly hard to learn, but it is different. And
Right.
when you'd had a non-native speaker, did that present any problems?
I wouldn't say there was too many problems. Also, in the earlier stages, you're not too serious about it. So I wasn't really thinking about pronunciation and stuff anyway back then. But now looking back, I would say, I probably would have preferred a native speaker from the get-go.
Okay.
But in the earlier years, we only really learned like the katakana and the very basic greetings, konnichiwa, hajimemashite.
Well, that's interesting, because just from learning English, I think that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest problems in Japan,
Right.
is that the students don't have the opportunity to be exposed to the real sound of English from a very young age.
That's true, actually, yeah.
And so that's interesting.
Yeah, I guess one thing to solve that is I would watch all the animes and the dramas that they
Okay.
would recommend. So I did get a lot of, Japanese
So
natural input.
when you watch these dramas, how many hours a day would you devote to it?
Oh, well, back in the day, I used to be pretty addicted to anime. I watched a lot of anime. So,
Like hours?
I'd say like 2 hours.
Okay.
I would watch like 2 or 3 hours.
And it's all in Japanese?
Yeah,
with
well,
subtitles?
I would watch it. Obviously, I wasn't high level back then, so I would watch it with the English subtitles. But I think you can still hear all the sounds and pick up some words now and again.
So you were exposing yourself to all of that input.
Right.
And you studied all the way from 13 to 18?
Yeah, 13 all the way to 18, which is called Year 12 in Australia. And at the end of Year 12, you have this big exam to get your university score called ATAR. And I actually finished the first in Japanese in my region. And because of that, my Japanese teacher provided me with the opportunity to come and work in Japan.
Oh, at 18.
At 18, so
You get a job in Japan at 18. And what were you doing?
I was being an ALT. I was an ALT in a place called Mito, Ibaraki, up north of Tokyo, a bit more in the countryside.
Oh, okay. And that was because of the exchange program with Japanese
That's right.
school.
Yeah, so my high school had a sister school in Mito, Ibaraki. I think they're still a sister school relationship. And the ALT of the school just retired, just went back to their country. And that gave me the opportunity to
that's
come.
wonderful.
Yeah, to come to Japan.
Wow. And you stayed there 1 year.
Yeah, that was just 1 year before university. It's called a gap year.
So how was your ability to speak Japanese when you came? Were you shocked at how good you were or how much you still had to learn? Which was it?
Very much the latter. I was shocked at how much I had to learn because, as you know, with languages, it's very different speaking with your teacher than speaking with actual native speakers at a bar or a cafe or something like that. So your teacher, they're very nice to you. They're going to speak slowly to you, use clear
They
grammar.
know what level you're at. They know which words to choose.
Yeah, but then you meet, random people. You're making friends at a party or something, and then it's all natural, fast-paced.
Did you go out of your way to make opportunities to use Japanese when you were here?
I would say that's something I've always been very good at. I've always been an outgoing person. I love meeting new people and everything like that. But one great thing is I've always done a lot of hobbies, whether it was gym, I used to play games or ride bikes and stuff like that, and even play a bit of basketball. And that really led to a lot of opportunities to meet new people.
Okay. I interviewed a woman who just recently retired, and when she came to Japan in the 70s, when there's no YouTube, she figured the best way to learn Japanese was to do some sport, so she did some kind of karate. And it was the same idea, that to make friends, to do it through the hobby.
Exactly, yeah. Even now I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here in Tokyo, and it's all in Japanese, so it's like an hour of listening to Japanese about a very technical situation. And then obviously all the friends I have at the school, at the dojo, they all speak in Japanese.
And what's nice too is that none of them are interested in learning English.
Right.
They really are there to learn Jiu-Jitsu, so they don't want you to, they're not going to take your English.
Right. Take me for granted or anything, And the good thing about the city that I come from, Melbourne, it's very international, it's very multicultural. So I had a lot of Japanese friends back home as well. So even when I go back home to Australia, I still have a lot of Japanese speaking partners.
Well, when you were in Ibaraki, and did you still continue any formal Japanese training, like using the textbooks on your own, or did you make time every day to practice? Mainly
just with input. I would still watch a lot of media and TV shows and stuff like that. But then my formal education, I would say, continued when I went to university. So in university in Australia, I studied Japanese as a minor. I did business major with Japanese philosophy minor. And then, that was, again, I was going back to the formal in class. And then I studied abroad in Osaka. Which is probably the best.
And what school did you go to?
Kansai Gaidai. It's a really great school. They got a great language program where you're just basically learning all in Japanese. You're learning Japanese in Japanese, which if you've already mastered the basics, that's a really good thing to do, I would say.
Because you'd already had all this experience of spending a year in Japan, did that give you an advantage when you went to school there?
Oh, yeah, 100%, yeah.
You saw all these people coming from other countries. young people who maybe studied in high school or something, but your level was it a little bit higher than theirs?
But the good thing about Kansai Gaidai is they've got so many different levels in their classes. So the more advanced people aren't having to do the basics again in a class.
Tell us about how you actually practice there. Like, what was the method, and what did you like about it, and what would you change about it?
Okay, great question. So, one by one. So what was the method there? The good thing about Kansai Gaidai, they actually made their own textbooks, which I think was very cool. So it wasn't just like the Genki or that I've used in the past, which those are good for learning the basics. But then Kansai Gaidai had very interesting ones about, Osaka lifestyle, Osaka culture, and everything like that. So one thing I liked was the textbooks. I could also learn the culture of the city.
So you were learning about the culture at the same time, all of the grammar points and everything that you needed, vocabulary.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing, it was based on the JLPT kind of levels.
Okay.
So I think at the time it was N2 level in the level I was at.
Oh, wow, that's pretty high.
It's high, and one thing, I really suck at kanji, but because I could speak well in the examinations at the start, they put me at the high level, but then I struggled a lot with the advanced kanjis.
This is a very interesting point, because from Nick and from other people, my friend Susan that I interviewed, who also mastered a high N1 when she was older, she accomplished that level. Is that they started with speaking first.
Yeah.
And then it was so much easier. Nick talked about this, that he was, even though his kanji wasn't as good as some of the other ones, he could quickly learn the kanji.
Yeah.
Where the other students maybe knew a little bit more kanji, but they couldn't quickly get the speaking.
That's a good point, actually.
So from the people I've been talking to and when I've been seeing it, if you focus on the speaking first, when it comes time to learn the kanji or the vocabulary in English, you're going to have a much easier time.
Yeah.
Especially with little kids, if they learn to speak first, it's much easier for them to learn to read and write.
Okay.
So that you're just verifying what I'm kind of,
a
little research that I'm doing here.
Fantastic, yeah. So that's one thing I liked about it. Like, some things I didn't like so much is, again, it was that very formal, sit down and write all the kanjis, which is good in practice. But I like doing the presentations and the learning. I also did one business class, which was in Japanese.
Okay. Was that hard?
It was very hard, but I think it was a great experience, because it kind of pushed me to study more.
Now, what if a person had been at a lower level than you, and they went into that business
they would have
class?
struggled a lot, yeah.
So even though it was like a little bit above your level, it wasn't, you could still manage it. So there's kind of like, what I'm trying to say
like
is
a zone.
There's a zone. So what would be too much to handle and a student could be too overwhelmed. Yeah. And then
For me, it was kind of just right.
Just right, because it pushed you to study a little bit, like to focus a little bit more. Yeah. You couldn't lose focus in the class, right?
Yeah, exactly, I think it's kind of like the flow zone. Right? If it's too easy, you're going to lose motivation and quit. If it's too hard, you're going to also do that. Yeah. Right? But if it's just in the middle, it's just right. You're kind of in the flow situation. Yeah, exactly.
That's very important.
Yeah. And one thing I would change, I would say I would focus nowadays less on pen and paper writing Japanese, just because I think it's a bit outdated. I haven't, since school, I haven't had to do that once, other than like at the doctor's or just writing my name and stuff like that. But that felt a little bit outdated, maybe more computer-based learning.
Nick also mentioned that he would eliminate the writing. Yeah. And basically, the reason is that even Japanese don't write anymore with pen and paper.
Right, yeah.
And that a new learner has so many things to learn.
Exactly.
That is probably the least important skill that they need.
Yeah, and especially with Japanese and the kanji, it can take a beginner like 1 minute to write one kanji. Like you say, kanke arimasu, it takes a very long time. Within a computer, it's going to take 3 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
So the speed that you can do it at correlates to how much overall you can achieve in that time period because we only have so much time a day we can dedicate.
Yeah.
And one last thing I would change is, well, it's kind of hard to change in a school system, but I would much prefer having one-on-one time rather than a group. Even though the groups were kind of small in the class, there was only like 8 students, but I just think having that one-on-one time with the teacher is very beneficial.
How would you fix that?
Yeah, that's a tricky thing rather than having more teachers or having just very short time. But one way how my high school fixed that is they would do like lunchtime sessions.
Okay.
Where and you'd be like rotating. Like,
how important is it to have gone to live in Japan?
Oh, I think it's very much so. The most important thing is it's kind of the motivation to learn more.
Okay.
Because right now I'm studying Italian, but I don't have too many Italian friends. My grandpa's Italian, but I don't
Does
live
he
in.
speak Italian?
Yeah, fluently. He passed away, unfortunately, but I don't have too much motivation to study it very intensely. So I'm just kind of doing it as a hobby.
You've got a million things that you're doing.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's talk about that. How important is it to have, as an adult, to find the time, like with all the things that you're doing?
Yeah.
How do you find time to study Italian?
Well, that kind of goes back to what we talked about at the start. And one thing I learned from Lingo Steve is when you're learning a language, it has to be a routine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to have that 15 minutes a day on Duolingo or whatever, or watching that movie it's at a set time or at a set period of the day. Okay, after I come back from working out, on that train ride, I'm going to listen to a podcast.
So you choose to do that. Even if you had a workout, you're tired, and you choose to listen to Italian. Okay.
Well, and one thing is, it's not exactly like the same thing if you have like a busy day at work and then you can relax and watch a video or something and do some passive immersion. And some people say they don't want to be too busy or they're too busy, but there's some things you can juggle around and fit some things in.
But then in Australia, or you came to Japan for 1 year, and then back in Australia you graduated, and then after you graduated from college, what did you do? Did you come to Japan?
No, it was right in the middle of coronavirus. So that kind of threw a spanner in the works. So I just stayed in Australia for another 2 years.
He said spanner, and I would say wrench.
Oh, yeah, that's funny. Throw a wrench in the works, I guess. Spanner in the works, yeah.
Both are fine.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so then I just stayed in Australia, obviously with all the borders closed and everything. And then, just last year, Thailand opened up. So I was living in Thailand, living the kind of digital nomad life, working on YouTube. Living over there, and I had Japanese friends in Thailand as well. There's a lot of Japanese.
So did you teach English in Thailand? But you were doing the YouTube.
Just YouTube, so technically teaching English, but all just through videos.
Okay. And what you focus on your videos is linking the words. I can't remember, what is it called?
Like linking.
Okay.
Yeah, so like consonant vowel linking and stuff like that. A lot of pronunciation, a lot of shadowing, so they get like real life practice.
Using real movies and
exactly. Yeah. So that's one of my main series is like the eiga de eikaiwa, which are very, very popular. And how I got that idea is when I was an ALT back in Ibaraki, whenever we finished class early or if the students finished the curriculum and then had a spare free day, I'd put on just a movie or whatever and then explain the scenes, and the students were super interested in doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Did it help with their English though? Were they able to was there a level were they at a high enough level of English that they could actually understand the movies?
I don't think if I just played the movie like all in one, they wouldn't be able to understand it. It's just too much at one time. So
you picked.
I would pick some scenes and then pause it and then explain it. Okay. And then have the teacher help explain it if it was too tricky. Okay. But I think overall it's made them so much more interested in learning the language when they can actually learn from their favorite movies or whatever.
Well, looking back on what you said, I mean, your journey started from 13.
Yeah.
And you've been continuing until now. That's what,
so
over
13
10 years?
Yeah, I'm 26 now, so
okay. So this constant effort.
Yeah.
And sometimes you put in a lot of time and sometimes not so much, but it's basically almost every day, something to do with learning a language.
Yeah, and I guess now, well, with all my work I do here in Japan, whether it's with the business side of things, and that's all in Japanese, where I'm talking with my colleagues. And then also I kind of, with my YouTube videos, I explain a lot of the English kind of idioms and technical grammar points in Japanese.
Okay.
So then I have to learn how to explain it.
Japanese.
Yeah. So I know how to say all like the English idioms in Japanese. Yeah, like
So that's really useful for you. It's
yeah,
really
it is.
Great.
That was like, because with YouTube, you don't really earn any money for like the first 2 years. Like it was just making videos just kind of as a hobby. But I kind of saw it as, well, at least I'm learning Japanese. So that was like motivation to get me through the tough times of YouTube, the starting point.
Well, let's go into the routines. I know that, in your video with Steve Kaufman, you talked about, in one of them, about you develop speaking skills the same way you develop better physical skills at the gym.
Right.
And that was in there. And this is something I really, really have found.
Yeah.
Teaching Japanese one-to-one in small situations, in across a table like this for many, many years, 2 people, 3 people, and observing how they learn. And it really is like physical training.
Exactly, yeah. So just like in the gym, you want to do the bench press 1,000 times.
And why do you do the bench press 1,000 times?
Because you're going to get a little bit better each time.
And a little bit more muscle, And if you do it inconsistently,
right, then that's when your skills are going to plateau or even decline or, be all over the place. Maybe you'll have strong biceps but a weak back or something like that.
In your case, what would you say your language routine is?
Okay, so, well, it's changed a lot throughout the years. At the start, it was much more academic in schools, having someone guide me through the process. Obviously now, I'd say now my biggest routine is writing scripts for YouTube. Just like all of yesterday, I was writing a lot of scripts, all in kind of Japanese and then explaining points in English.
Okay, so your brain is working in Japanese.
Yeah, exactly. And then after that, I did a whole jujitsu class. I did 2 jujitsu classes, and that was all Japanese listening. So I think since I'm kind of a higher level now, it's more fun. I think at the start you have to focus on
It's tedious.
Yeah, just to get over the hurdle. But then once you get over that, it's going to be much more fun.
It's really the hockey stick, isn't it?
Yeah, J-curve.
In the beginning of learning a language, this is what's so difficult for people to understand,
get over
especially
that
from
first.
English to Japanese or Japanese to English, because you start from absolutely zero.
Yeah.
Everything is backwards. Everything is different.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can bring in to Japanese from English or English to Japanese.
Right.
And so it's like you practice and you put in so many hours and so many hours and so many, and a little bit. And then suddenly I notice with the students, they go like this.
Exactly. And I think that's something to do with like compounding as well. Because I think the more you know, the more you have motivation to learn.
Exactly.
And also there's so many linking things in English, not just linking in pronunciation, but, if you learn the word, adequate, and then you learn inadequate, you already know the word, so it's easy to compound onto it.
Yeah.
So then your vocabulary or your listening skills, everything just compounds. And that's, I think, why we get that J-curve.
How about go into what you're using to study Italian? So now you have this busy schedule. You're dealing in Japanese and English in your daily life for your job. And now Italian is the language you're hoping to learn.
Yeah, maybe in the future
so
I want to go to Italy or something.
Okay.
Well, yes, so when you're learning a romance-based language, the number one thing that people struggle with is the conjugation. So in English you say, I eat, he eats, she eats. But in Italian it's io mangio, lui lei mangia, tu mangi. So the verb eats becomes like eating, it changes based on the pronoun.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to kind of get that and get the repetition down, one thing I've found is good is Duolingo. And I wouldn't say it's good for Japanese people to learn English, just because they've probably got the grammar in there somewhere. They just need way to access it in speaking.
You could try one of my pages on my
Right.
little images, and I make workbooks using little images.
Yeah.
And it's really great for verb conjugation.
Exactly.
for
I'll have to
anything.
try that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Duolingo has been great just to get those very basic words down.
Mhm.
I've also been using Link, which
How
is...
many hours a day, and when do you do it?
Well, I do Duolingo every day, just like 5 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm on a 21-day streak now. So that's
So they
been
have, in Duolingo, they have like courses where you can set up, like,
Yeah.
they have challenges for you.
good. Exactly,
Okay,
yeah.
this is like a sports type thing.
Yeah, it's
too,
like a
right?
game. Like,
Yeah.
what I did is basically I used to just scroll on Instagram for like 30 minutes a day. Instead of that, I just Duolingo for 30 minutes or
And
chess or something.
Why did you change? Why wasn't the Instagram as good as the Duolingo?
Well, one thing is the Instagram, like the shorts are all random, so
Okay.
it's not focused,
So,
and it's
okay.
hard to remember. What I
So
would
you need structure, wasn't
yes, yeah, I think you need structure when
there?
you're
Especially in the
learning
beginning.
something, yeah, especially in the beginning. And then another thing I do is I watch a lot of YouTube videos, but since I'm still quite a beginner, I watch dedicated learning videos. So
Okay.
not just content in Italian about some random thing. I'm not quite at that level. I can do that for Japanese, but not Italian. So I one channel that I like is Easy Languages,
Okay.
and they also have videos in English. And what
It's called Easy Languages.
Easy Languages, yeah. And they would do like interviews in Italy, just say, what do Neapolitans think about pineapple on pizza or something? And then it's an interesting topic, but then also you're getting natural conversation, and in some difficult parts, they slow it down, they have the subtitles in English.
How about kids' videos in Italian? Do you watch any of, like, for learning the alphabet or anything?
Yeah, I haven't done that. One good thing I'm very hopeful of is the alphabet is the same. It's just the phonics are slightly different, but they're very easy to learn. Also, I had an Italian grandpa, so he could even his English accent, it was kind of an Italian sound. So I grew up all my whole life hearing Italian sounds, and they're very easy to learn quickly.
So every day, do you have a dedicated time that you choose to do this?
Yeah, well, every time I'm riding on the train, instead of just listening to music, unless I really need some energy or something, I'll listen to the Easy Italian podcast. They have like the videos in MP3 files.
Okay.
And one thing I would say my biggest tip for learning languages is instead of spending a little time with a lot of vocabulary, spend a lot of time with a little vocabulary.
Okay, and how much do you repeat? Do you use Anki, and do you use...
Instead of Anki, I use Link.
Okay.
Which
Link is... Can you explain what Link is?
Yeah, so Link is the platform made by Lingo Steve. It's really great.
So every day you're spending maybe 20 or 30 minutes on Italian?
Yeah, I would say around 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good, yeah.
Do you have plans to go to Italy soon?
Yeah, it definitely. It's on my list. The whole Europe trip.
And see your family in Italy?
Oh, that's the thing. It's kind of like a mystery in my family. But my grandpa came to Australia when he was 18 and never went back. Never talked to his family until the day he died at 74. So it's a very mystery. So I don't know. Maybe my mom knows or something.
Young, 74.
Yeah, unfortunately, but yeah. So yeah, maybe I'll discover.
Well, you left home at 18 too.
Exactly, yeah. So me and my grandpa kind of have similar stories.
Going to a foreign country at 18.
Yeah, but I did go back, so a little bit different. I still speak to my family.
So routine and treating language learning with that discipline is really the foundation of everything.
You have to have those habits, and then the only thing that's going to keep you going is the discipline.
Because without the discipline, you'll never get the result.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of people, they have the idea of, if I just show up to the class, I'm going to be able to speak English. If I just do this Eikaiwa class. But that's just one piece of the puzzle, you know? So one big problem I find is a lot of people, they just rely on that one class a week, like you said. They think, if I just go to that one class, I'm going to be able to speak. Or if I just go to that Eikaiwa once a week, I'm going to be fine. But it's just one piece of the puzzle. So yeah, outside of the class, you also have to do your passive, active immersion, a lot of input, a lot of new vocabulary, a lot of training.
If somebody wants to be a baseball player, how many hours do
Yeah,
they devote to just trying to hit a ball?
exactly.
And yet with language, just 1 hour a week. It's not so much different, really,
Yeah.
about what it takes to become a pro language speaker
Right.
and what it takes to become really good at a sport. And already in Japan, I know that they devote a lot of time to learning sports and
Right.
learning piano. And it has to have that same mindset has to be transferred to learning to speak English.
Yeah,
And
100%.
not just studying the grammar for school, but the actual skill of speaking has to be taken that seriously.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I find a lot of Japanese people are very dedicated. They're very disciplined.
Yes.
You know?
And once they understand that about language, I find that they begin to change and they begin to get it. And so I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what it really takes to become proficient in another language.
Yeah.
And I hope today's video kind of
Yeah.
helps to give more insight into that. I want to ask one final question.
Perfect.
You have become in charge of all of the Japanese English education. What would you change? What would you do?
Wow, that's a big question. Okay, wow, what would I do? Well, I can only speak from my experience, and I would say it's very hard to do, but the ideal would be to have classes every day, right, for English.
From what year?
I would say straight from the start,
How about Yochien, or the Japanese kids start school at kindergarten, which is 3 years old?
Yeah. I think it's great that they can get exposed to it. It doesn't have to be super intense or anything, but just a little exposure. If they learn the ABCs or whatever, and starting with their phonics in that super young age, then by the time they're going to be in primary school, elementary school, then they're already going to have a head start rather than having to do it all at the one go. And set up great habits from the beginning.
Great habits would be?
Yeah, for example, not just learning from a Japanese teacher, but being able to listen to and get the natural sounds of a native speaker. I think.
Okay, so the teachers from the get-go should be native speakers so the children can see the mouth and hear the true phonics.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think later on, Japanese teachers are great for explaining the grammar and the little tricky things. And not all native speakers can speak Japanese and explain it, at a high level. So I think that's great, especially for kids. I think they learn great through sounds and phonics and phonemes and stuff like that. So even just like kids shows being showed in school, I think that would be an absolutely fantastic way to get the kids motivated.
So more videos and a lot more screen time for kids watching real English. Okay.
And as you said, repetition. So maybe they can have one episode for the whole week, and they watch like in 5 minutes, 5 minute sequences, and then they repeat the 5 minutes, and then maybe watch it one time with Japanese or whatever, one time with English, one time, with whatever.
This repetition is so important. So you would really emphasize for kids more repetition of the basic learning. Okay.
And I would try to eliminate super high level vocabulary in the TOEIC and the Eiken tests or the entrance exams, because I feel like they're just going to stress out the students. And we don't really use the super high level academic words other than studying about law or studying biology. But I find I'll pick up a TOEIC 900 or plus textbook, and it's got words that I've never seen before. So if you're learning words like that in your second language, it's just going to stress you out.
Oh, definitely. We were talking earlier before we started making the video about the two minds,
Right.
learning the vocabulary
And
mind
learning the
and
grammar.
learning the skill, how to use the grammar. Not just learning the grammar, but learning actually the skill of organizing words into sentences in the correct order. And that's what I find is that when I'm studying Japanese, I can focus on the vocabulary or I can focus on the grammar. But if I do both at the same time, the result is very poor.
Okay.
So I have to focus on the grammar first. I'm a slow learner, so I have to focus on that many times. Then I can add the vocabulary, and then I can study the vocabulary. But doing both, it's too much.
Yeah. And then I guess the last thing that has been beneficial for me, and I can only speak from experience, is having that one-on-one time. So maybe set up, it's easier to do it at a smaller school like where I went to, but setting up that maybe lunchtime conversation class or, having a 30-minute online class. I guess now we can use technology. If that was implemented with the regular system and students can do that, like even just once a week alongside their regular training, not only the once a week thing, but that just helps you get motivated. I know when I was doing it, I was always thinking about, what am I going to talk about? And like making like example sentences, the night before, being prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's great motivation.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I really would like to thank you for taking the time today.
My pleasure.
Meet with me.
100%, yeah.
He gets nothing out of this because my YouTube channel is like this big.
I get some delicious cookies. That's great for me.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Your deep handshake.
Yes, great.
Please visit my YouTube channel, The English Factory, for more insightful interviews with people who have succeeded in putting in the tremendous amount of time and effort it takes to become fluent in another language. Please use whichever part of their story is appropriate and doable for your situation and for your goals. Good luck. Ganbatte.